Hello everybody and welcome to another video. In today's video I've got an interesting package to check out. This was sent to me by one of my awesome Patreon supporters known as Banort on the Discord. And well, it's in a BRS box, but guess what? It's not a BRS knife. No, my friends. This is the JK Designs Orca, and this is number 80, which is kind of nice because my emissary is number 8. And so we got number 8 and number 80 here. That's pretty dope. But yeah, I've been flipping the Orca a bit. I wanted to make a Will Hirsch, like one of our shorts videos on it, but I don't think we'll have the time, unfortunately. We've been so busy shooting a ton of content and also doing a bunch of stuff for different volunteer organizations we're a part of and work, and just our lives have been crazy. So unfortunately, I think this one might have to be relegated to this video where I talk about it and give it a quick review, but it's still very much an impressive Balisong. So the Orca is a weird one. It's from JK Designs, and it is obviously a very unique design. You've got this sort of watery blade shape that's got all these organic shapes and curves, and then you've got the handles, which have got this like long center line cut out of them. There's not a lot going on the sides, but then you've got this kind of like front jimping on there. I don't know. It's really interesting Balisong, and what struck me about it the first time I saw it was I just thought to myself, oh, that looks really heavy. Like, that looks like that's going to be a really heavy Balisong, especially after having my Monarch, and the Monarch blade doesn't look nearly as chunky as this. I wish I had my Monarch to show y'all right now, but unfortunately, it is still with Julian, and he is still fixing it, but apparently it should be fixed by Blade Show, so I'm hoping that I'll be reunited with my Monarch at Blade Show, and that it'll work again and be actually fixed. Who knows? But until that point, this thing is honestly a lot of fun, and to be fair, I think Julian may have at least somewhat solved whatever issues he had with the Pinless System, because as far as I can tell, this Balisong, nobody has had issues with this one yet closing the handle gap. On the Monarch, especially the bearing version of the Monarch, the Pinless System was a problem because essentially over time the handle gap closed until the handles just slapped together, and that was really not great. There's multiple videos about it on this specific channel actually, where I talk about how I really wish that my Monarch was fixed, and it's not, and it still is not fixed, and hopefully it will be at Blade Show, and just it was a whole nightmare. So, the Orca, being also on a Pinless system, had me a little concerned, but both because it's on bushings, not bearings. Bearings make the handle gap close really quickly because the handles can slap into the steel a lot harder, whereas with bushings, it's a little bit more of a smooth sailing experience, and so the force isn't as high when you're opening and closing the Balisong. But still, you know, it's not perfect at all, and I do think that there will be some signs of wear over time. For instance, inside of here, you can already notice there is some, like, impacting inside of there where this part has slammed against the titanium, and over time, it has dented its way into the titanium a bit. And thankfully, that's not as big of an issue here as it was on mine, but over time, the steel will eat into the titanium. That's just kind of the nature of things. And so I don't know at the end of the day how long this will last. It could be a few years, it could be tens of years, I really don't know. But so far, from what I've seen, nobody has had a real big issue with their Orca specifically, you know, not working. Now, here's the question though, why Pinless? And this is a big question that I'd like to pose, because here's a question. This thing, which is a Pinless system, has a bigger Zen Pin Nipple than my one that does have pins, the emissary. you can see the Zen Pin nipple on the emissary is very small, and this thing has a massive stinking nipple. Like, what's up with that, right? Well, the reason that JK Designs does pinsless Balisongs is not because pinsless is better or pinsless is the future or anything like that. It's to lower costs. So, here's the thing to know. If Julian is making a knife like this, and he has to add pins like that, or all of the hardware that this knife requires, which is pins, it requires these pivot screws, it requires 4 screws in the back for these spacers, and then he has floating spacers, which utilize this little, like, spacer, which makes the spacer floating. It's a lot of parts. There's a ton of little individual parts is what I'm getting at. And so, on something like this, well, how many individual parts are there? Well, as soon as you've eliminated having to put pins into it, now you're not having to press fit or put anything in there. And so, all you have to do is mill out this handle, and then you attach it with 2 pieces of hardware. And so it makes the assembly, but also the actual manufacturing of this Balisong much easier than his earlier work. And that can be great, because obviously if you have an easier time manufacturing Balisongs, then you can have a easier time making them, so you can make more of them, and you can also usually make them for a lower price. But here's the rub. Julian has done this pinless system, which is neat, but really unnecessary, and over time is almost definitely guaranteed to fail. Instead of doing something like this with a pin system, and the aesthetics haven't changed because you still have this massive Zen Pin nipple. So the aesthetics of the pinless system hasn't changed. Whereas on my Monarch, it was perfectly flat across the top, and I thought that was pretty cool. But obviously that didn't work out because my Monarch has handle slap now. And honestly, over time, this one will probably get handle slap too, unless something... I mean, maybe it won't because of this design, because it extends all the way down, that even if it started to handle slap, it would have this piece separating the two. But still, with that kind of thing, like, it seems kind of silly to me, you know what I mean? Like, to not put a pin in here and still have this massive Zen Pin nipple, right? Like isn't the whole point of the pinless system to remove the nipple? And the truth is, no, the whole point of the pinless system is to save Julian money when he makes these, because that means that he only has to make the one handle and not do any post-processing in terms of adding any other metals or pins into this system. It makes it a lot easier for him to just do a few milling operations and then be done with a piece, and then tumble it or blast it and then anodize it, and it's off, you know, to the races. And that's not to say that, like, it's necessarily a bad thing, but when you have stuff like Julian, you know, selling all of his Balisongs for $1,100, $1,200, I think this one's, what, $1,250, something like that? Is it worth $1,250? I don't know. Like, maybe. It's good. It's fun to flip. I do enjoy flipping it. I'm definitely not having a bad time flipping it. But at the same time, there are other makers making the same, if not better, products for substantially cheaper. Like, something I'd look at is the Serif, right? Does this flip better than the Serif? Absolutely not. You know, something else that this reminds me of is the PDN. Now, the PDN is definitely more on the expensive side, but that's because it's manufactured by JK Designs. His manufacturing is relatively expensive because he charges people a lot to manufacture their knives. And so, yeah, it's hard for me to say, and the other problem too is I'm just really not a fan of auctions for these Balisongs, and Julian does end up running a lot of auctions. It's just not something I'm super a fan of. Like, obviously, if there's a special edition or whatever, then fine, yeah, run an auction, that's great. But when the primary way of selling your knives appears to be auctions, it's kind of weird. And what makes it extra weird to me is these people that are buying, you know, these Balisongs, and they'll buy something like this that was originally $1,250 new, and then they'll buy it for like $1,800 to $2,000 plus in an auction, when it doesn't actually retain that value. Because I don't know if you've seen the JK Designs stuff on the secondhand market, but oftentimes it doesn't appreciate in value. Oftentimes it'll actually depreciate in value. Like if you try to sell an Orca for $2,000, nobody is going to buy that thing. Often if you try to sell an Orca for $1,250, nobody's going to buy that thing. You have to sell it for like $1,100. And that's just kind of sad to see to a degree. Like, you know, it's a perfectly good Balisong, and it is a lot of fun to flip, and I am having a good time with it. It's just the air surrounding it is sort of weird to me, especially after the experiences I've had, where it's like, you know, I've had some very positive experiences, but I've also had some pretty negative experiences. You know, after I spent $1,100 on my Monarch, I would kind of hope that it would work and not fail in the first year of me owning it. And so when it did fail in the first year of me owning it, I had kind of hoped that Julian would make that right and fix it. And instead, it's been like 3 years, and that hasn't happened. And instead, I've had to just wait as my knife has been completely useless and just be sad about it. You know, I would expect Julian to be like, oh yeah, well here, let me mill you a new set of handles or something like that. You know, and see if I can't fix the problem that way. But no, we had to modify my current pair of handles because milling a new pair of handles would be too expensive. And that's true. Julian would lose money if he milled a new pair of handles for everybody that bought a Monarch and then they started slapping, because most of them started slapping because it was a flawed design from the beginning. But he has, made a lot of money since then on other designs like this, and so leaving the people that bought his original stuff, like this Emissary and, of course, my Monarch, back in the day, leaving those people out in the dark kind of sucks. Like, you know, I'm happy for him for making more money or whatever, but, like, I don't know, it's taken such a long time for mine to get repaired, and then even then it feels like I'm getting special treatment just because of who I am. You know, because, like, from what I've heard, people have had trouble with, like, their products arriving and the bushings not being tuned right, and then when you know, and so that's straight from Julian, the bushings aren't tuned right, and so you send it back to Julian to get the bushings tuned, and he'll charge you like $60 to do that, even when he was the one who sent it with bad bushings, and you're paying for like $1,000 plus knife like that. I don't know, that doesn't seem right to me. So yeah, I don't know, it's a weird gray area that I live in. I don't know exactly how I feel about it, but that is the case of the Orca. It's a good knife, but I wouldn't say it's worth the money unless you're getting it secondhand for under retail value. Something interesting, though, is when I first got the Orca, or when I looked at it, I kind of suspected it would be like the Chab. I really did. I thought that it would have a similar performance to the Chab. I thought that it would, you know, feel very similar, because they both look really chunky and heavy. Honestly, between the two of these, the Orca looks chunkier and heavier than the Chab to me. However, the miracle of good design means that actually the Orca is much better balanced than the Chab and has a much better flow when flipping. It's much lighter, it's much better balanced, it is large in the hand, but not in a bad way. I don't know, it's all around a very good Balisong, and that's kind of the rub, you know? It's a good Balisong, it's just not my favorite. It's, you know, at a certain point for me, and obviously this is just because of my privilege and like the possibility that I have to flip so many different Balisongs, which I'm very lucky for, but at the end of the day, to some degree, Balisongs just become, okay, well, it's either made with good materials or it's made with bad materials. And flipping is really up to the individual. Somebody might like flipping their latchless Chab more than they like the Orca, and someone might like the Orca more than they like the latchless Chab. So as long as they flip well technically, in the sense of they don't have a ton of play and they have good swing, then the balance doesn't matter too much as long as you know what the balance is. So if I tell you that this one is exceptionally handle heavy and this one is surprisingly neutral, you know, that might give you an inkling as to which you would like better. But it doesn't necessarily objectively mean which one is better. And so that's kind of the difficulty with scoring and reviewing Balisongs that I've come to find. And you know, between that experience of trying to find, like, what I would consider good or bad scores, I've kind of come to find myself feeling very samey about certain things. Like this, for instance, I look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, it's cool, but at the same time, it's really just, you know, channel titanium with a S35VN blade, and that's a lot of Balisongs nowadays. And while that's cool, you know, I think it's really good. It makes for a good Balisong. It's not impressive or surprising or new to me. It's just like, yeah, it's gonna be good. It's channel and it's channel titanium and steel. Like, what do you want from me? It's gonna be good. Duh. It's gonna be good. How do you do that wrong? You know? I don't know. That's kind of the way it makes me feel. Is it's like over time I've flipped so many channel titanium and steel Balisongs that it's like, yeah, it's gonna, you know, unless it's really bad, it's probably gonna be good. And it's a similar thing with a lot of the sandwich style Balisongs and also the aluminum channel and steel Balisongs and stuff like that. So like over a period of time, I've started to like put Balisongs into camps where it's like, oh yeah, I recognize these as kind of all the same thing but with different flavors. And then like this, you know, the sandwich ones are like all the same thing but with different flavors, which isn't necessarily true. It's just kind of because I've flipped so many of them, it's the way it's affected me. And I know, boo-hoo, what a problem to have. I've flipped too many good Balisongs, but I don't know. I just think it's funny how it's affected me, where it's like I don't see this and freak out and lose my shit. I see this and I'm like, yeah, it's steel and titanium, and then you put it together and it's good. It's good. It can be hard for me to say more than just, oh yeah, it's good. Sometimes, because that's just the truth of it. That's just the nature of how this goes sometimes. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. The Orca, I do like it. I think it's a good Balisong, but I don't know if it's the one that I would buy necessarily. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.